Welcome to self-editing for the professional writer. I have my notes down here in front of me, so if it looks like I'm not speaking to you, it's because I'm reading my notes and I don't want to miss anything. So, dear friends, have you ever read something you wrote 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months, yesterday, and you just cringe and you think, oh my goodness, did I really write that? It's horrible. It has my name on it too. Oh my gosh, how can I ever recover from this? Because everything from word choice and genre and grammar and content, it just screamed back at me, at least that's what mine does, that, oh my gosh, how can I ever think that I'm a professional writer? And you know what? I've even checked to make sure that my name was on it, because surely I would not write anything that badly. And part of it is because we're always growing, learning, observing, and changing in the craft. And so as we ingest all that knowledge, we also are changing in the craft, and so we get better. It's that growing syndrome that we're all a part of. Our job as writers is not limited to merely creating a manuscript, but we have a responsibility to our edits and our revisions. It's our duty, it's our job to offer our readers the very best, which means we create a work of art, because writing is rewriting. The edits and the revisions of our manuscript, those are the means of molding the work into a sculptured piece. You know, like every January when we decide to diet and we decide to exercise because we want to mold this body into a sculptured piece. Well, that's what we're doing with our writing. And we want to be proud to submit it, not to be ashamed that our name is at the bottom of the who wrote it. Saul Stein, a writer who writes about writing, he says an unwillingness to revise usually signals an amateur. I kind of gulp when I say that, because you hit that send button to an agent, an editor, a critique partner, and you're thinking, okay, do I sound like an amateur? Do I really sound good? And revision is an exciting challenge. Maybe you should repeat that. Revision is an exciting challenge. It is an adventure to make our writing more powerful. Like that sculpture piece that we're lifting weights and making sure that our muscles are in good shape. So I suggest that you look forward to it, because revision and editing provide an opportunity to make the project not only better, but eventually the best. And it also can be humbling. Did I say that? Revision can be rather humbling, but how much better for us, the writer, to catch the poor grammar, the inconsistencies, the manuscript construction, plot failures, all of those things, instead of an editor. Because then the editor or the agent tosses it back at us with a stamp that says rejected. A few things I highly recommend, and these are also on your handout sheet that I'll post later. But I recommend an English grammar guide. I don't care if it's your high school or your college old English book. I don't care. Just so you have something. Um, I also recommend text to voice software. Nothing, absolutely nothing is more humbling than listening to a computer generated voice read an air. My personal favorite is GhostReader. And you may want to look into that. They do have, at least they used to, a 30-day trial to see if you really like it. Grammarly, and that's grammarly.com, is also an excellent choice. Pro Writing Aid, that is an app and I love it. The Chicago Manual of Style. This has several editions. It's constantly being updated, but this is what most all of our publishers use. Another editing tool that I would be completely lost without is the word frequency counter. Now, a word frequency counter picks up those echoes, like, how many times did I use that word? Now, let me tell you what it does. This free app allows the user to copy and paste every word that has been written into it. And then it comes back and it lists how many times the writer has used every word in the manuscript. So I'm telling you, I copy and paste a 90,000 word document into that particular website, and it takes me a couple of days to figure out what words, yes, occur frequently and what words have I overused so that I can change it up. Uh, you will enjoy it, or rather, you will appreciate it. Rule number one is don't revise while you write. Now, I know some of us want to have a decent draft, and I'm one of those. I may be a seat of the pants writer, but I want pretty clean copy while I'm writing. But remember that creating a book project it comes from the left side of your brain, while all that editing, where we are right this minute, is done on the right side of our brain. And as I said before, the most important part of a book revision is the edits. When writing that first draft, no matter how clean, the fiction writer is learning about characters and plot and emotion and scenes and all the things that go into a novel, while our nonfiction writer is concerned about contents, focus, subject matter. And so when we edit, we're fine-tuning our writing projects. And sometimes we even ask, oh, look at this. How can I make it any better? So don't be afraid to use your imagination and find new ways to express your work within the guidelines of the manuscript. In a novel, think about the unpredictable response of your character. Then do the opposite, but in character. That's just an example. In a nonfiction project, focus on the subject and add depth and meaning. In both instances, the writer strives for clarity, conciseness, credibility, and creativity. Regarding the amount of times to go back and edit and rewrite and revise, only a writer can make that determination. I strongly suggest getting involved. And when I say getting involved, I mean giving and receiving in a critique group. And that can be either online or face to face. Right now, today, it's online. And I encourage you to do that because another pair of eyes is always so valuable. Here are a few guidelines to that editing process. Number one, let the work rest for at least 2 weeks. You're going to let it cook. You're going to let it simmer, because the longer we wait, the fresher the work will appear to us, and the more likely we are to see weak areas. Number two, use text-to-voice software that uses that computerized generated voice to read the work audibly. And I believe Adobe has that incorporated into their programs. Again, I will say that GhostReader is something I just can't do without. Number three, print the manuscript and work from hard copy. Now, I know that takes time, but I'm telling you, writers, there is a whole big difference from reading our work online and reading it on a piece of paper. It just makes a world of difference. It's like we are blinded when we're reading it online. And part of the reason is because the manuscript is up here in our head, but that doesn't necessarily translate to paper. So some writers use an elaborate system of colored pens to point out problem areas. And I see the value of that, but it's not something I do. So what I want to do now is we're going to take a look of some book passes. I have them written in alphabetical order so that I have some type of order into how I'm presenting this. And understand also that sometimes I repeat myself, even though I say that when we're editing, we have to be careful of redundancy. But some of the items that I'm going to give you to take a look at in your editing fits more than one category. If you have any questions whatsoever about what I'm presenting, you can email me privately later, and I'd be glad to help you. And my email is DiAnn, DiAnn, at DiAnnMills.com. Okay, let's get started. A, accuracy. Facts must be researched and documented. And that also means, and I do repeat this later, is to make sure that those facts are not destroyed and that you have them as part of your file for your document. Active voice. Strive to make your sentences active. Remember your ing words tend to make a sentence passive. Often the word as indicates a sentence is not in chronological order. Not always, but that as can make the sentence very positive. For example, I tripped as I walked up the stairs. Actually, you've got to take a few steps before you could trip. So those are the kinds of things to be on the lookout for. Avoid cliches. We've all heard that. A successful writer creates his or her own metaphors and similes. And when you can do this within the character traits, wow, that's impactful. Beginnings. Begin the writing project with a strong hook that raises a question or a curiosity. Chapter hooks. End passages and scenes with a strong hook. I got carried away there. You know what I mean. Someone is reading our work, fiction, nonfiction, no matter what it is. And they get into a scene and they get to the end of a chapter and they decide, okay, now I'm going to go to bed. Now I'm going to cook dinner. Now I'm going to fill in the blanks. But if we writers can create a hook, honey, there ain't no way they're going to go do that other stuff. They're going to keep right on reading. Characterization for you fiction writers. Take a look at your hero, heroine, protagonist. What is it about the hero or the heroine that you like? What is it about the hero or the heroine that you dislike? Maybe you haven't thought about that particular question in your characterization, but it is something to consider. Is there a positive and a negative trait that that aren't yours? Villain or antagonist? Is the character truly evil or badly behaved? Think about that. What is the one trait that gives the antagonist redeeming quality? You know, no bad guy or bad gal was born, popped from the womb and said, hey, mom, I'm going to be a bank robber, I'm going to be a liar, I'm going to be a thief. That doesn't happen. Those behaviors occur as the character, as we learn and change and grow. And sometimes we grow into not so good people. Saul Stein states that no villain can create or attract victims unless that villain has charm, charisma, position, or wealth. Something else to think about. Chronology. Use a calendar to keep track of story chapters and scenes. And I do give you a link for that in the handouts. Conflict and tension. Keep conflict and tension foremost in your mind, always. For nonfiction writers, conflict and tension keeps the reader turning pages for more information. Consistency. Spelling. Make sure things are spelled correctly. Numbers, written or spelled. Make sure you understand the rules and that you are consistent. I've always said to a writer, if you're going to misspell something, at least do it consistently. It'll be easier to fix. Dialogue. Whether you are writing fiction or nonfiction, make sure that your dialogue is clear and tight. Punctuate correctly. Take a look, determine if a tag is needed. Strongly suggest use only said. Said is a blind word. It is used only to show who is speaking. It's not a time to tell the reader how the character said something. Is a beat needed or action needed? And understand that if there is an action there, a tag won't be needed because we already know who's speaking. Emotional conflict. Is emotional conflict evident in every paragraph, every line? Be sure to use body language to show emotions. And writers, this is true for fiction or nonfiction. Flabby words, those extra words add fat to your manuscript, not muscle. Many are adverbs or adverbial phrases. Avoid things like he sat down or she stood up. How else can you stand but up? How else can you sit but down? Avoid begin to, start to. Writers, get right to the point. Don't hedge. The character or something did it, not start to or begin to. Again, avoid cliches. Be clear and concise. We've said that before. Never use two words when one word will do. I know we're all about the the writer count, and at the end of the day, we're looking, okay, did I make my word count? That is so important to me. But if we're using flabby words, they'll all get edited out in the process. Okay, genre. Is the project written with a clear genre in mind? How do you want your story to feel to the reader? Do you want it creepy, brooding, inspirational, light, humorous? For the nonfiction piece, do you want it informative, inspirational too? What about grammar? As I said before, invest in a grammar guide or an English book. Passion. Do you have passion for the writing project? Let me give you a little tip here. If we writers do not have passion for what we're writing, how in the world can we ever expect a reader to become involved, to have passion, to be excited about our work? And writers, have we grown and changed into a better person doing that writing process? Again, we can't expect the reader to grow and change if we don't. Plot for your fiction writers. Are the 4 crucial plot questions answered in every scene? Number 1, what is the point of view character's goal or problem? Number 2, what does the point of view character learn along the way in this scene while they're trying to figure out how to solve this problem or reach a goal? Number 3, what backstory is written? Understand that questions 2 and 3 can actually have the same answer. Number 4, how were the stakes raised? And those are my 4 plot questions. Other things to consider in plot. Is it tight? Have you eliminated any holes and tied up all the threads? Premise. Is the writing project true to its premise? Pronoun reference. Make sure the reader knows which noun the pronoun replaces. Redundancy. And I've been redundant during this time that we've been talking, but I've done it on purpose most of the time. Avoid repeated phrases, often referred to as echoes. Word frequency counter, as I mentioned before, will help you with those redundancies. Research. Keep a works cited for the fiction and nonfiction. I don't know how many times my fiction editor has said to me, okay, where did you get this information? I need to know where it's validated. So I mentioned this before right at the beginning, when we talked about accuracy, to keep track of your resources. Always research more than you need. Interview persons living in the area or in the line of work these people who are knowledgeable in your subject matter. Scenes. Rate every scene from 1 to 10. And trust me, if they're not a 9 or a 10, you may not need them. And if they're a 9, make them a 10. Every scene, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, should propel the writing project along, constantly building conflict and tension, showing us more of the character or the subject matter. Make sure the first and the last lines in each scene are strong. Make sure you have smooth transitions. And begin each scene with a strong hook. You heard that before. Sensory perception. Does each scene in your stories, do they show all the senses? Can you create your nonfiction project and make it even more meaningful by using sensory perception? Sentence beginnings. Avoid beginning sentences with the words so, then, well, okay, all right, listen, look, of course, I mean. Also avoid beginning sentences with the words there is, or there are, or it is. Get right to the point and eliminate those types of sentence beginnings, which are also a bit flabby. It's also called weasel words, and that will be our last one. Sentence order. Count the syllables with single syllable words like beans, cabbage, and tomatoes, not huckleberries, pear, and a banana. Do you see how that rhythm flows better when you use single syllables than the double syllables, then third, or however that falls? If all of the words in your list begin with the same letter or have the same number of words, then count the syllables. He enjoyed green beans, deep fried onion rings, and buttered corn on the cob. Those all had different word counts. If all the items have the same number of syllables, then consider their position in the alphabet. Exception to the chronological order is obvious sequence. Then consider their position in the alphabet and unintended modifiers. Sometimes the way we are accustomed to hearing things in a list contradicts what I just said. If the items in your list do not sound appropriate, change the order so the list is acceptable. For example, tea with lunch, dinner, and breakfast is written as tea with breakfast, lunch, and dinner chronologically, not syllable-wise. A cream and peaches complexion is actually peaches and cream. If someone is going to have a discussion about the bees and the birds, which makes it in alphabetical order, it really becomes the birds and the bees. Gold, myrrh, and frankincense are written as gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, setting. For fiction, view the setting as antagonistic to add conflict and tension. For nonfiction writers, ensure the setting links to the subject or focus of the passage. Then we have show, don't tell. These are telling words. There's lots of telling words. I'm giving you a few. Think, know, understand, wonder, realize, believe, remember, imagine, want, need. Granted, there are places for these words, but most generally, they tend to tell instead of show. There's a book I recommend, and it's called Understanding Show, Don't Tell by Janice Hardy. My plan is to memorize it eventually. Topic. Does the nonfiction topic have different aspects or features that blend it all together, weave into a solid piece? Transitions. Does each chapter or scene flow into the next? And again, transitions also mean smooth and strong hooks. Use strong nouns and verbs. And we strive for vivid descriptions first through our nouns and our verbs. Then we go back to other descriptive means. Vary your sentence length. You do not want a whole string of short sentences. Neither do you want a continuous string of long sentences. When your sentences are rhythmic and you alternate with short and long, It's pleasing to read. It has that musical quality. Now, understand during action scenes, you're going to have short, choppy sentences. And understand when we're in narrative, we may have longer sentences, but the rhythm makes it more interesting to read. Verb tense, make sure all those verbs agree. Word choice. William Shakespeare said, suit the action to the word and the word to the action. Unintended modifiers. Make sure all modifiers modify the appropriate word. Writer termites. Here we go. And some of these I've visited with you about before. Writer termites, that, there is, there was, it is, which, just, only. Conduct a global search of the manuscript for words that end in ly. Also do a global search for words that end in ly with a period after it. That will help you find your adverbs and things that are just adding flab. They're termites. They're trying to eat away at your well-constructed manuscript. Okay, friends, this is the conclusion of self-editing for the professional writer, and all of you are professional writers. Write on and understand that we have a mission in this world, and that mission is to communicate through the written word. Thank you so much for your time, and you are valued and appreciated.